It has been over 11 years since World of Warcraft was released. In this time, the game has gone through a number of patches, bugs, and world-shattering events, but none have been as interesting as the Corrupted Blood Plague. About a year after WoW was first released, it was hit by a plague the likes of which it had never seen, known now as the Corrupted Blood Plague. But what was Corrupted Blood? Corrupted Blood was a debuff that could be cast on players by a boss known as Hakkar the Soulflayer. Hakkar was found in the first ever 20-player raid dungeon, which means that he was designed to be a challenge for even a large group of maximum level players. As a result, the Corrupted Blood debuff was designed to do a huge amount of damage to a party over 10 seconds. In addition, Corrupted Blood was infectious. Players could catch it by standing near another player who had the Corrupted Blood debuff, and it could be transmitted incredibly quickly. Of course, Corrupted Blood was never meant to leave the raid dungeon. WoW was designed to check players leaving raid dungeons and remove debuffs that needed to be removed, like Corrupted Blood. However, hunters who were able to summon and desummon their pets were able to transmit the debuff well outside of its original area. By summoning their pet, allowing it to contract the debuff and then desummoning it, hunters could prevent the game from realizing that the pet had the Corrupted Blood debuff, since it was desummoned when the game checked for its debuffs. By doing this, they could use their pets for makeshift biological warfare, resummoning the pet in a crowded city or town, and spreading the disease to all nearby players. Of course, nearby players were not as likely to be max level, and would be killed almost immediately by the incredibly powerful debuff. Adding to this is the fact that NPCs were able to catch the debuff, but would not be affected by it. They were able to spread the debuff to other players for an incredibly long period of time, as they didn't take damage or lose the debuff. This led to huge numbers of dead lower level players, and what were usually safe zones became infested with death, as players tried to flee to uninfected areas. While Blizzard obviously realised that there was an issue fairly quickly, it did take them time to create hotfixes. During this time, they encouraged players to quarantine themselves in less populated areas to try and avoid the plague. Some players took it upon themselves to help others, healing and debuffing players or warding them away from infected areas. But a much larger portion of players decided to embrace the plague, attempting to spread it as far and as wide as they could. Players would intentionally contract the plague and take it to either highly populated areas or known areas that were safe from infection in an attempt to infect others. It still remains one of the closest things that the online world has had to bioterrorism. In fact, it has been suggested that the incident can be used to study terrorism. Infected players intentionally spreading the disease have obvious parallels to modern-day terrorists. By examining how players attempted to infect their allies, it was thought that we could gain an insight into how real-world terrorism units would act, although this falls flat in a number of ways. While it is an interesting incident, the way that people act in the real world is inherently different. People will always act differently when there are actual lives, including their own, on the line. While this incident falls flat as a study in bioterrorism, it provides some insight into research for epidemiology. Player hysteria during the plague matches much more closely to real-world situations than pure mathematical models do. There have been a number of papers and talks done about this event from an epidemiological point of view. This hefty talk goes on for just under an hour and is filled to the brim with German humour.
Yeah, before I start, I have to get one thing out of the way. I never played World of Warcraft.
The plague is still being discussed over 10 years later. It has been noted how similar it was in relation to other epidemics like SARS and bird flu. The CDC even reached out to Blizzard to try and gather statistics on the plague, but were rebuffed. Blizzard claimed it was just a glitch, and as such they didn't have any statistics on it to pass on. Eventually, Blizzard removed the ability for Corrupted Blood to spread, and that fixed the problem once and for all. While the entire incident only lasted up to a day depending on the server, it is still well remembered among players involved at the time. The plague harkens back to a day where bugs were rampant and player bases were congested, in a way that would never really happen today. Blizzard tried to recapture the magic of the plague by introducing a similar zombie plague, this time intentionally, for the launch of Wrath of the Lich King, but overall it was met with negative player reception. You can't really recapture the magic of an unintentional plague with created content, I suppose.